Let's talk to Alessio Rastani. He is a founder and CEO of leadingtrader.com. Alessio, very good morning to you. Let's talk Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Let's pull up the first slide. Did Bitcoin just burst? How it compares to history's big bubbles?
One of the first things, Nick, I want to bring your attention and bring to your viewers' attention is this. Always pay attention to the news headlines on these different financial channels and financial websites, and just count the number of negative headlines versus positive headlines. And I think it's a good indication of the sentiment. So, for example, some of the recent headlines we've seen on Bitcoin recently, look at it, the majority are negative right now. It's not surprising. Bitcoin has had a 50% correction so far, just about nearly 50%. So the majority of headlines and the sentiment certainly seems to be negative, which is, by the way, as contrarians, that's actually a good sign. It's a bullish sign. Right?
Okay.
Now, so let's take a look at the next chart. This is from Google Trends, and I think this is a very powerful tool and indicator. Look at this.
So this is lookups of the word Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. It shows the amount of people who are interested in looking up buying Bitcoin, and it shows the amount of public interest in Bitcoin itself. Look at it. Look, and the interesting thing is, back in December, when Bitcoin was peaking, rallying above over 10,000 and eventually went to 19,000, you can see that the interest in Bitcoin peaked right about the 7th of December, even taking out the previous peak it made in 29th of November. So the huge amount of hubris, the interest in Bitcoin was immense back in December. And at the time, I posted a video. In fact, I was in this show as well. I said, look, be careful. We want to do the opposite of everybody else. And I would say this to your viewers and everybody who's watching this. Always pay close attention to what everybody on social media is saying. If the majority of your friends and people that you're following on social media, if they're all very optimistic, saying, if they're all calling for higher prices, be very cautious, because the majority of people, if everyone is saying one thing, they're probably on the wrong side. Similarly, right now, the majority of public opinion has shifted. As we can see, just take a look at that chart one more time. Look at that. The sentiment has dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, this right now, I would say, look at this. The sentiment's dropped below the 25 level. I would say right now is about the time that we should be doing the opposite of everybody else and actually be interested in getting into Bitcoin. Now is the right time, not before in December. So let's look at the next chart. Firstly, let's just look at those arrows on the chart. Why have I drawn those arrows? That is pointing to when Bitcoin tests a key level on the daily chart, which is the orange line I've drawn, and that's the 100 daily moving average, which is a level I always pay attention to. The 100 daily moving average has been tested many times, and every single time, Nick, single time bounces. Yeah, I mean, by the way, I could pull this chart back several months back, and it's still been testing that level and bouncing from it. So this is a great level. I actually mentioned in my previous video, pay attention to that level, because that's a level we want to start picking up, nibbling, and buying Bitcoin again. And that's exactly what it's done. It's not managed to bounce from that level. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to hold that level necessarily. It might not. It might go below it. But what I am seeing is, from an Elliott wave perspective, it appears that the drop and this corrective move is not so much a crash, as everyone's calling it in the media, which is very overblown, sensational nonsense. But it's more of a, what would you say? You're going to say something, Nick?
Healthy pullback.
Yeah, a healthy pullback or correction. We've seen these corrections happen before, as we can see. Look, it happened in September, happened in July. People back then weren't calling it a crash either. But all we've had so far is a pullback, as you said, Nick, correctly, is a pullback or correction, ABC correction in Elliott wave theory, or a three-wave correction.
Because after an ABC, the textbooks would say we go again.
Okay, so according to Elliott wave theory, most market corrections are formed of three waves, which is called ABC.
Yep.
Now, sometimes, by the way, I just want to pay close attention to this. If you just go back to that chart, sometimes those ABC corrections can be clean, like they have been before, like a clear ABC three-wave correction. That's what's called a clean correction. But sometimes it can be very messy.
That's my problem with Elliott wave.
Exactly, absolutely. My prediction is that this is going to be a very messy correction.
Right.
Why? Because the sentiment was so overwhelming back in December, and I think wave 4, I think this is a wave 4 correction. Wave 3 probably formed back in December, so what we're seeing now is a wave 4 correction on that 100 average. I think it's going to be a very messy correction, which means what? It means that we could test that bottom again, and maybe again. I think what's happening on Bitcoin right now is we're forming a base, like a support level. We're forming a base around that 10,000, 9,000 level. We might go a bit sideways for a while. And then finally, when everyone has given up,
the buyers will come in.
When everyone is least expecting it, we're going to see a sudden push.
Okay.
Probably to test that previous high. I think if Elliott wave theory, basically, if this wave count is correct, and if we follow Elliott wave theory, which I do, then I think we're bound to see at least another retest of that high near 19,000. I think it's likely. If we fail to get back to the previous highs, then I'd start to get worried.
Right.
That maybe there's something, maybe the uptrend here is not quite as healthy as we thought it was.
Tell me about the webinar. Okay,
so I'm doing a webinar, a free webinar on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. It's with a Bitcoin millionaire. It's with a guy who's made millions, over $5 million in Bitcoin. Basically, he's going to be talking and share his opinion on what Bitcoin is doing and where it's going to go. So that's going to be 8 p.m. Tuesday night, free webinar, and you can go to leadingtrader.com and subscribe. It's a free subscription anyway, and join us that night. Thanks very much.
Alessio, as always,
thanks a lot.
Brilliant to have you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.